So you might have heard the 24 Toyota Tacoma is having transmission problems. Today I'm going to tell you why you have nothing to worry about using logic. The first thing though to understand is something I call peasant math. Yes, you've all heard this before. I don't have any debt except for my mortgage. That's right. Peasant math is something people do instead of using real math. They use peasant math. And what that means is they take one side of the equation and delete it. In this example, the mortgage part. Your $600,000 mortgage that you claim is not debt. You delete it because it hurts your feelings. So that's something that the masses do all the time. Now, as that relates to this Toyota Tacoma transmission issue that's supposedly happening out here, you got to realize that there are 88,000 Tacomas sold, and there are only 14 anecdotes over here online of alleged automatic and manual transmission failures. So in that equation, people like to conveniently forget the whole 88,000 Tacomas sold without issue. In other words, peasant math again. I don't like this number over here, so I'm just going to delete it. It hurts my feelings. But in real math, in actual math, we have to take into account the whole context of the equation and the true mathematical equation. We have 14 anecdotes of alleged transmission failures of 24 Tacomas, but we have 88,000 Tacomas sold and on the road. So you have to keep that actual math, not peasant math, into consideration. When you do this, you realize that statistically speaking, this 14 failures over here, statistically irrelevant. What does that mean to you? Well, reality. More Tacomas are totally fine and not having issue, and only a tiny, statistically irrelevant number are reported to allegedly be having problems. For all intents and purposes, your risk level is very low if you go ahead and buy one of these 24 Tacomas. Period. That's what the actual math is. But let's say Toyota is screwing up and they're screwing up your transmissions. They don't know how to make a transmission anymore. An Aisin transmission, the best in the world. The sky is falling. So what? Okay? Toyota will fix it. They have done so in the past. These are Aisin transmissions. They're not Jatco transmissions in your Nissan. Good luck with that if you're jumping ship over to Nissan. You can't beat an Aisin transmission at all, period. They are the longest lasting automatic transmissions, period. Back in the day when transmissions used to die at 100,000, you're lucky to get to $150. We still got Aisin automatic transmissions on the road out here today in Southern California with 500,000 original miles. Nobody changes the oil in them. The oil is black. They just run. They last forever. But let's say your 24 Tacoma transmission breaks. Well, that's why you got your warranty. And so Toyota is going to take that transmission, delete it, and give you a new transmission that's going to work, and it's still going to be under warranty. But this has all been done before, and this is where context comes into play. Take away your tunnel vision and come out and see the history of Toyota, and you'll see that Toyota's been through this before. This GX460 that I'm sitting in, this Lexus GX460, has something like 60 recalls on it. The old Tacoma was recalled. It had transmission failures. The old Tundra was recalled. It had transmission failures. This GX460, people have had transmission failures. It happens, especially in early year models, which everybody knows if you're getting a 24 Tacoma, you're taking that risk on that first model year. But the bottom line is, regardless, Toyota is going to fix the problem. How do we know? Because they have a history of that. All of your bulletproof old school Toyota stuff had issues before. It was already recalled. You just don't realize it because back then people didn't whine and scream on social media about it. They just got the recall notice and they dealt with it and it was fixed, and the next thing you know it was called bulletproof. There was no Reddit and whining and on YouTube and screaming into a camera to get blown out of proportion. So when you hear stories about 2024 Toyota Tacomas are having their transmission failures, Toyota don't make them like they used to, blah 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 blah, take it with a grain of peasant math salt. People like to take numbers and then throw away a big number that really, really matters in the equation, like the 88,000 Tacomas sold. Just like the person that goes, I don't have any debt. I'm debt-free. I'm 100% debt-free, except for my biggest debt over here. I just didn't ignore it conveniently because it doesn't make me feel good. I want to live in a fantasy world. So too are the Toyota doomsdayers. They want to live in a fantasy world where Toyota somehow didn't test these automatic transmissions years ago in R&D and test them to 1 million miles like they've always tested them to 1 million miles. But if you've tested them to 1 million miles, then why are they failing? That can't be true. In reality, even though they test them to millions of miles, the manufacturing process cannot really be tested in R&D. They can test it in their laboratories, they can dyno the transmission, they can do real-world testing, but they can't babysit the various manufacturing processes that are around the world. They can only babysit that process for so long. Regardless, no matter what manufacturer we're talking about, there's still going to be those manufacturing growing pains, those errors on the assembly line, which historically Toyota has always worked out. Whether you're in warranty or out of warranty, they're going to make it right. They're not going to jeopardize their global reputation of quality, durability, and reliability over an automatic transmission. Yes, I know. To people, automatic transmission, that's a complex machine. Aisin and Toyota don't care about your automatic transmission. They've been making them for 100 years or whatever. Close enough, right? Doesn't matter. They've been making them forever, and it's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. They just take out the one that's not working, figure out what's going on, and fix it. That's what they've always done. That's why Toyotas last forever. That's why they're number one in the world. Remember, Toyota didn't start out on the top. They got there from the bottom to the top because they make good stuff and they do the right thing when something goes wrong. But fear sells, and if it bleeds, it leads, and the peanut gallery certainly eats up nonsense. So we know that, but you're smarter than that. That's why you're here on this channel. That's why you subscribe to hear the actual truth. All generations of Toyotas, bulletproof Toyotas, have had recalls, from engines to transmissions to airbags to brakes to everything in between. Toyota takes it all seriously. You have to give some time, a reasonable amount of time on a first generation model to iron out not the R&D kinks, not the engineering kinks, because that's all been done in a lab and in testing grounds, on testing grounds on the racetrack, blah, blah, blah. You get what I'm saying? What you can't do in that process is actually see what happens when you send it out into the real world to real manufacturers. They gotta babysit that, and they gotta iron out the kinks, and that does take time. It's not going to be Willy Wonka and Veruca Salt, don't care how, I want it now. It's not going to work. You're going to have to give it some time. That's why we have a warranty on Toyota products. It's to cover that nonsense that might happen in the manufacturing process and allow Toyota a fair chance to make it right. So if you got a 24 Tacoma or you're thinking about getting a 24 Tacoma, they're here to stay. This engine, drivetrain, transmission is going nowhere, okay? Your kids are going to be driving these things, your grandkids, whatever. They're here to stay for the next 16 years. They've already been dynoed, they've already been tested, they've already been run through the gauntlet and run through the torture tests. This is just that final stretch where any automotive manufacturer has to put it out in the real world with real world manufacturers that make mistakes. And if you allow Toyota a fair amount of time to iron out those manufacturing issues, you'll realize that you've got a bulletproof new generation engine and transmission. If you're watching from the future and your 24 Tacoma already has 300 something thousand miles, we told you so.